The police said they were seeking Andre Patton, a resident of the transitional home, in connection with a fatal stabbing. Nassau County Police Department, a Roman Catholic deacon on Long Island who ran a transitional home for men with a history of addiction or crime, was stabbed to death on Friday by one of the residents he had devoted his life to serving. The deacon, Patrick Logsdon, was the manager of Anthony House in Roosevelt, NY, in Nassau County. For more than 30 years, Mr. Logsdon, 70, took in up to 9 men at a time, giving them a bed, home-cooked meals, help finding a job and, above all, a tough love attitude, said James Pfeiffer, 61, who worked at the house with Mr. Logsdon for 4 years. The men, many of whom had spent decades in prison, were allowed to stay for 6 to 8 weeks, during which time they were expected to behave with dignity and prove they were trying to get their lives back on track, Mr. Pfeiffer said. He would say, "You can't con the deacon," Mr. Pfeiffer recalled. Mr. Logsdon, who was known as Deacon Pat, would walk around town to check up on residents and make sure they were not getting into trouble. Guys would call him the Ninja Deacon, and say, "Where did you come from?" He was tough as nails, Mr. Pfeiffer added. But he was about giving someone another chance. The police were called to the house just before 10:30 p.m. on Friday, and they found Mr. Logsdon on the floor with multiple stab wounds. The Nassau County Police Commissioner, Patrick Ryder, said at a news conference on Saturday. Mr. Logsdon was pronounced dead at the scene. The police said they were seeking a suspect, Andre Patton, 47, a resident of Anthony House. Mr. Patton was described as armed and dangerous. The motive was unknown. 3 people were living at the house at the time of the killing, Commissioner Ryder said. The Society of St. Vincent de Paul, of the Diocese of Rockville Center, which includes Nassau and Suffolk counties, runs Anthony House. The society also runs another transitional house as well as a thrift store. Deacons are one of 3 orders of Christian ministry, in addition to bishops and priests. Deacons are able to perform most functions of priests, including the distribution of Holy Communion. In a statement on Saturday about Mr. Logsdon, the diocese said even at the time of his death, he was carrying out the gospel message of caring for the poor as he has done faithfully for 33 years. Let us seek healing and comfort in the one true God during this time of great loss. Mr. Logsdon's faith was the driving force behind his work, but with the exception of a sign outside the house that said "Pray hard," he never imposed that faith on his residents, Mr. Pfeiffer said. The deacon's acts of ministry extended far beyond the work of Anthony House. He spent hours each day on the phone with prisoners, some of whom were serving life sentences and would never have the chance to enter Anthony House and find help. He had a crick in his neck from propping the phone in between his neck and his chin, Mr. Pfeiffer said. Mr. Logsdon didn't foot the bill for all of those calls, though one man in nearby Garden City, who had once asked the deacon to pray for his son, was so grateful to him that he paid the bill each month, Mr. Pfeiffer said. The men Mr. Logsdon helped often did not believe they would find a job or stable housing. Mr. Logsdon was more optimistic but was never naive, Mr. Pfeiffer said. He was well aware of the risks of working with men who had spent time behind bars. Deacon Pat always knew that this could happen, he said. He did not have rose-colored glasses doing this work. He wasn't scared, but he was wary. That wariness never deterred the deacon from his work, Mr. Pfeiffer said. If he had been stabbed and lived, he would have still remained devoted to it, he said.